and some guy took like a whole bunch, and then he was like, "Oh."
Oh.
That's funny.
You said
That was
Pretty
the
good story. That was a pretty good story. I give it a B. B.
Well, yeah, because I couldn't revise it.
Whose is this? Whose is this?
Naharka.
All that stuff is Naharka. It's not mine.
Oh, you should hide it.
You should throw it in the trash. Like outside, downstairs.
Okay, I'm not done.
Give it.
I'm not done.
Mr.
I was gonna
Burrell.
put it at the back of the room.
Mr. Burrell, you know how you were saying, Mr. Burrell, you know how you were saying this
brownie
school
really
is a
says-
business school?
Yes.
You can literally see that in the interim because now they're making I'm going to Wish for Kids and they're making us plan a business plan with them.
What?
So we had to learn how to do a business plan.
Yeah.
At least you learned.
Our goal is to make you. Well, you know, I mean,
Disco ball.
better an educated businessman than an uneducated businessman.
Mr. Burrell.
All right, we're moving on. Yes. Okay. Well, you can tell me now because I've got to pull up one document and then I'm ready to.
Can I give you the payment for the visa later?
Well,
Like,
that's kind of like a.
afternoon. Yeah.
You have to give it to me later because you have to give it to me. It's gonna get here before. Right. So.
Wait, what's your annual?
Okay, then you fine.
No. Put my back.
You're like,
Is it taping? Oh yeah, it is. Oops. I don't want my head to be in it.
what happened? Did the wind like knock it out or something?
What? Knock what out?
Who? Amy like tapped it
Tap the what?
and then it came off.
What came off?
Oh, Amy said, "How are you doing?"
Okay, you need your notebook. Allison, you need your notebook. Has anybody started reading chapter 6 yet?
I read like a page. I read like the first 2 pages.
I haven't read it yet, so I'm really curious to see where it's going now. It's starting to get really interesting to me.
Is Jamie not here?
No, Jamie's not here today. She missed our intro meeting too. She's on my intro. Hot Fuzz. Dragon 2. How to train your dragon 2. Dawn of the Planet of
Okay, is Jamie the only person? Let's count off just to like get some energy out. Go.
2.
3, 4.
5. 6.
7, 8, 9,
10, 11, 12,
13, 14,
15, 17, 18, 19.
Thanks, Maharka.
You're welcome. Well, it could also count as me because I'm a two-faced. Look me. Two-faced.
You are what?
Two-faced.
Wait, why'd you do that accent?
I don't know.
What was the accent?
Don't
It
judge
was
me.
random. It was random.
Okay.
Oh, it's the second half of the Two-Face. I forgot. Be your right side of your Two-Face. Be the left side of your Two-Face. Wow, they seem very similar. Yeah. I don't think he's really two-faced. I think he's just two-dimensional is the right word. It's maybe three-dimensional. You have a lot of alter egos, you know? Like Beyonce has Sasha Fierce.
My other alter ego is
Check this out. Check this out. Check this out. I'm gonna project my iPhone on the screen.
Oh, I can do
You
that
didn't know that?
too.
Techie stuff.
Wait, but you didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, I get the.
Come on. Bloody iPhone. Bloody Apple.
Good. Then we now have a page for once in our lives. Come on.
Hey, you don't got what I need. So you are in my way.
No.
And what I do to people who's in my way.
No.
Is
Oh, baby, you got what I need. But you say he's just a friend. And you say he's a
nurse.
Oh, baby, you got what I need.
Okay, well, I can't.
Dude, give me my pencil.
Anybody know how to make an iPhone tether with this? Because I got the iPhone thing, but it's not showing me the code here. How? I mean,
I have to look at the phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let me find
I think you go to you like.
I mean, I scrolled up and I found AirPlay.
Mr. Burrell,
Is it connected to the Wi-Fi?
Mr. Burrell, I think you need to turn AirPlay on.
No, no, is it connected to the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I should be connected.
Where were you?
No, is your phone connected to the SS?
Yeah, I'm on the SAS Wi-Fi.
I'm at burn.
So, okay, whatever.
Ooh.
I'll figure it out another time.
Where's my bag?
I was just going to show you the app is getting pretty cool. So,
What the? Why? Why did you tell her?
Oh my god, he's being nice.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot about it. Oh, were you guys waiting to see her reaction?
Yes.
She had it here.
Yeah, and then it became. Oof.
Oh, I don't know where your bag is, Naharika. Maybe you should check over there.
It's okay, he's a nice person. Okay.
Yeah.
Judge me.
Yeah, judge her.
Yeah, I'm judging. You haven't used common sense. You use your niceties.
This is the first time you wore your hair down. This week.
okay, tell me where we left off last time with we want to finish the Hebrews today.
Stop. That is rape.
Hot.
Yes, it is.
I always do this.
You're touching her hair against her will.
Is this against your
I really do not care.
See,
As long as my hands are washed and clean, I don't care.
They're not.
do you know I haven't gone to the bathroom?
Yes, you have. I
How old
stalked you. Like Olivia
Have you
Post.
seen it? Oh my god. I'm on episode 3.
Of
Season
season
4.
4. Yeah.
I started watching Arrow. It's really intense.
Arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It shows on mine.
It shows on mine too, but I don't get the passcode to let me project. Thank you.
Maybe we should look it up online.
Looking what up?
And whoever finds it first gets a nice cookie.
You're the second person to mention a nice cookie today. Alice asked me if I was going to give somebody a nice cookie in the interim meeting. He just brought up me giving a nice cookie too. Annie, you're so honored to be the first recipient of the nice cookie.
Yes.
It was really funny because I was like, are you gonna give her a nice cookie? And then it was like the only person there who would actually understand what that meant. She still has it. But
Oh,
I want to have like a class with this Chinese class.
what?
I want to have a class, like a combined class with this Chinese class. Yes. It's good in a bun. It's like 1, 2, 3 buns. I did not buy a stop bullying thing because I felt like they were ripping off.
I know. She was my friend.
Who? Shannon.
Okay, are you ready to start copying? We're going to bang through this.
Yeah, I'm in the same base, that's true.
Although we are talking, after all, about the beginnings. We're starting. Although we are talking about the beginnings of the religion. 8967. I know. That's pretty good.
Oh, I thought that was the
Oh, I thought it was for the phone, that's why I laughed. Because finally it came, but really I shouldn't have.
Although we are talking about the beginning of what so many people, possibly half the population of the planet, thinks is just like, you know, normal and natural. When you study the history, it's totally way more interesting than just walking around going, yes, that's what I was taught when I was really little, and I've never thought about it the first time. We are going to think about it a little bit, but I'm going to let this very insulting, shallow 9th grade textbook just guide me as to limit me from talking about it as much as I could, because after all, we have to talk about the entire freaking world's history in this class, and you can't go deep too much. So, let's see. Anybody remember where Palestine is? I've got a map ready. I told you I'm working on this quiz. Where is it? Oh.
Israel.
There you go. Good, good.
Like that area.
Yeah, it's the region, kind of really Israel's inside the Palestinian region. It's a region, not a country. So yeah, so Abraham, this guy goes to Palestine, but people already lived there. So remember, God promised Abraham the promised land, the land of milk and honey, where his people, his sons and generations after him will multiply until they outnumber the sands and the sea and become a great nation, outnumber the stars in the sky and become a great nation. He gets there and people already live there. And they don't worship God. They worship the fertility goddesses of the Babylonian system. So, who knows the word Torah? T-O-R-A-H. If you don't, this is another one of those like basic things. It's like, you know, who's the savior of Christianity? Do you know the answer to that one? Jesus, right? And people would kind of look at you kind of weird. You're like, I don't know. In the same way, the Torah, it's basic. So this is testable material. The Torah. What is a Torah? God is said to have, and this is so interesting. If I walked up to you and said, hey, walking to school, I was on my bike today, pedaling to school, and suddenly God appeared to me and gave me a book and said, I wrote this, I created the universe, here. And I walked in and I said, God gave me this. Now, how would you react?
Yeah,
And yet, this is what happened to Moses, sorry. So, let's get a brief chronology down. Abraham is said to have died around the year 2000. Oh, really? They didn't tell the story of Isaac?
Oh my god.
Oh, okay, we have to tell the story. So here's our question. Here's our essential question. What is the nature of religion to the Jews? What is the nature of religion in Judaism? Because Judaism is the seed Christianity grows from, and we already said obedience, but here is the iconic, know this word. This is a good word if you're giving speeches and stuff. What's an icon besides the little thing on your computer that you click?
Something memorable.
A like icon?
Oh, something memorable. A part of things.
It is an image like, okay, you've got a celebrity, a movie star, a sexy movie star standing on a sidewalk above a ventilation vent. You know, like we have here, the drainage vents, right? And her skirt is blowing up and she's doing this, smiling with her platinum. Marilyn Monroe, an iconic image. The mushroom cloud over Hiroshima. Everybody knows it. Iconic image. The first step on the moon. Iconic images. This is an iconic story. Icon means really like almost sacred picture, right? So the iconic story of what obedience means. Abraham, his wife's name is Sarah. And Abraham and Sarah are very old, and they have no children, and God goes, your children and he's like 90 and she's like 80. And I might be off by the numbers, but they're really old, way too old to have babies, right? That's for young people. 80-year-old women don't get pregnant and have babies, and 90-year-old men don't have the energy to get the 80-year-old women pregnant in the first place, right? This is a young thing. And so when God tells Abraham, your children and the descendants after them will be fruitful and multiply, and you will inhabit the promised land, the land of milk. Sarah hears Abraham say, I just talked to God, Sarah, and check it out, I know it sounds crazy, but he said that we're going to be founders of a great nation. And Sarah laughed at him. She's like, are you an idiot? You're 90. I'm 80. We don't have any kids. So they went to do the tent that night. Started feeling a little something.
What?
Next morning, Sarah woke up. She was like, woo, Lord have mercy, I'm feeling some morning sickness. I thought, I believe I'm pregnant. A miracle. God impregnated Sarah at 80. And Sarah has a baby. And Sarah has a baby. No. I told the story wrong. Before, Sarah said, no, I can't have a baby, so he must mean the slave lady that we had. Yeah, they had slaves. And so the slave lady's name is Hagar. And Hagar is also a Semite, and she has a son. Sarah's like, go sleep with the young slave girl. She'll give you a baby, because if God's going to make your children baby, a great nation, it's not going to be from me, I'm 80. And so Hagar, and Abraham's like, thanks, wifey. In the tent with the young slave girl. Next morning, slave girl wakes up. Oh, I'm feeling a little morning sickness. Oh, 9 months later, and there's a baby boy, and his name is... See how fast you can summarize a story? 9 months later, there was a baby boy. And his name is Ishmael. When you read the great American novel Moby Dick and AP something or other, the first line of Moby Dick, the story of the whale and Captain Ahab, is, call me Ishmael. Okay? Ishmael's a very interesting character. So notice, he's the illegitimate bastard son because he's not the son of the wife of Abraham. He's a slave son. Then God, who has a wicked sense of humor, no pun intended, no irony intended, God's like, let's just mess with their heads a little bit. Abraham may be feeling a little jiggy after his success with Hagar at 90. Oh, I'm feeling a bit of a young again, huh? Hey, Sarah, hey, wifey. Nice starry night here in the Syrian desert. Look at the stars up there. Have a little sun. Sarah wakes up the next morning, has a little morning sickness. 9 months later, baby boy, Isaac. Now, men, you got 2 women that you've had babies with. What's going to happen now? Fight. Sarah's like, get that bitch Hagar out of here and that little bastard Ishmael, right?
You said you were going to
Dude, no, I'm being dramatic. I told you cursing's okay when you're doing fiction and literature. I'm telling a story.
Whatever you
and
say.
I quoted her.
Whatever you say.
I quoted her.
Whatever you
Move
say.
your ponytail out of the way. I mean,
That's
your
a
bun,
bun.
okay? No, that way, female, that way. Oh, God, really? I can't put fun words in the dialogue? If I were David Sedaris, I couldn't be Rooster?
No.
Yes.
No.
Of course. Prude, Puritan. Okay, so she's like, get that witch. Get that witch and that little bad boy. and so Abraham's like, oh, happy wife, happy life. And so he's like, okay. She's just pleased. She's okay. And he goes to Hagar and he's like, honey bunny, sorry. Leave. You gotta go. And so Hagar, which looks like a man's name to me and always has, I don't think it was, well, she had a voice. So Hagar and Ishmael do leave, and according to the Bible, they disappear from history because Hagar takes her little baby boy and she's terrified. They're like nomads, they're like traveling. They're alone. And she's terrified. And she goes away with her boy, we're gonna die. And God appears to her, too. God appeared to a lot of people back then. He stopped since. And he says, don't fear. You, too, will start a great nation. Go south into Arabia. God. To Hagar, the son of Abraham, the mother of Abraham's first son. And so, the Bible ends this woman's story and her boy by saying Ishmael went into the desert and became a warrior, a master of horseback and the bow and arrow. A wild man, okay? The Muslims and the Quran and the Arabs say we come from him because he went to the Arabian Peninsula and he gave birth to the Arab people. And so the oldest son of Abraham, who was promised, Abraham's promised a great land in Palestine, the oldest son is the Muslim, the Arab. So we deserve the promised land because Ishmael is the older brother of Isaac. And the Jews say we came from Isaac. The ones in Israel, the Jews, the Hebrews. So you got, what an interesting thing. This story from the Bible, written 1,000 years after it happened, because they weren't writing at this point. We have no written record of anything. They said 1,000 years ago this happened. In any case, so, all right, so goodbye Hagar, goodbye Ishmael. Congratulations, Abraham, your wife is happy now and she's not nagging at you and you're not watching cat fights. All right, so life is pretty peaceful in the tent. They go down to Canaan, the promised land.
Ishmael. I-S-H.
Abraham and Sarah and their boy Isaac. And God tests Abraham by saying, Abraham, who I have promised a great nation to, through your sons and your grandsons and generations to come, a great nation of people, a massive, massive, powerful nation. Take your only son, Abraham, take your only son, and take him up the mountain, and take your knife, the one that you sacrifice goats with, and lay your son on the stone that we do religious sacrifices of goats to me. But instead of a goat, Abraham, I want from you 9-year-old, 10-year-old Isaac. And so Abraham was like, yes, Lord, I obey, because you commanded me and I swore obedience. That was the covenant. I will obey you. So yes, I will take my little 3rd grade son and wake him up and walk him up the mountain. And Isaac's like, Daddy, what are we doing? Why are you waking me up? And why are we walking alone up the mountain? You've got your knife. There's no goat. We normally take a goat. Dad, what are you doing? And everyone's like, don't ask nervous teenage questions, son. And Abraham is obeying his God, and he takes his boy up and he ties his boy to the stone, and he pulls out his knife, and there's his boy, and it's his only son, and he doesn't get it at all. How is Israel gonna? How is this great nation gonna happen if God's telling me to kill the only son I have, and I'm not gonna bet on her having another one. This one's gotta have kids, and God's telling me to kill my son, to sacrifice a human sacrifice. But I'll do it. And so if I were your dad and I were Abraham and you were my son, I'd lay you on a stone and I'd tie you, and you'd be going, Dad, what? And you'd be full of terror, and I'd be crying, and I'd grab my knife, and I'd be going, why is he making me do this? And I would pull your hair back and expose your throat and put the knife ready to cut and make the blood spurt and kill you. And that's what he did. And only at the very last moment did God say, Abraham, you're obedient. I am greatly pleased. I renew my covenant. You're a good man. You obey me. You are willing to murder your son for me. Very odd story. That's how obedient God expects people to be. Kill your own offspring if I tell you to. That is how authoritarian the Abrahamic religions, at their very root, because this is the oldest story, this is the first generation, right? It's how authoritarian this divinity is. There are no commandments at all, and no God's ordering humans to do anything in China. So this is a cultural thing. Gods have different personalities. This one, whose name in Judaism is Yahweh. Now, at this point, I'm going to remind you that no matter what you say your religion is, unless you're very unusual, you really don't know anything about your religion. And so you're probably doing the predictable thing, oh, he's saying bad things about my religion, not even realizing that right now we're talking about Judaism, and we're talking about early Judaism, and this religion does change over time. And even Jesus himself will have some problems with his dad. The dad who says, I just want to see how much you're going to obey me. Kill your daughter now, right? Jesus himself will have some problems with this.
Does he ever have a child?
No, but, and so Isaac does have children, yes, and that becomes the Jews. The Jews say that we are the descendants of Abraham, Sarah, and through them Isaac, and then Joshua, no, not Joshua, who's next? Yeah, Jacob and all these people. And on it goes until we get to the next major patriarch. So Abraham, vocab word, we've had iconic, that's one vocab word, patriarch. Sort of like major father, like founding father type thing, patriarch. You see the root. We've done this before, haven't we? P-A-T-R? The root. Know this root. What other words do you know with pater?
Paternal.
Paternal. Paternal. And the opposite of paternal is? Maternal. So, patri. P-A-T-R. Male. Masculine. Patriarchy. So, the patriarch, the male founders of it.
Ark isn't ark.
High, top. So the top males of the civilization, right? And so Abraham is certainly the most important because he's the one that God reveals himself to first. And then, so this all happens around 1200. Well, so, the next 800 years they're in Canaan. There are people there who are Babylonian religion types, fertility goddesses, Ishtar, all that sort of stuff, polytheists. There's a famine, and everybody has to leave. Around the year 1400, this is all traditional. There's very little evidence that any of this happened archaeologically. It's just the Bible's word.
1400 BC.
BCE, yeah, it's all BCE. Remember, Jesus was, quote, 0, so anything pre-Christian is going to be BCE. So Abraham in the land of Canaan, Palestine, it's another word for Palestine. And so that's where all these people for the next 600 years. And then there is a famine. And so everybody in Canaan, all the people of Abraham have to go where? To the Disney story. Egypt. And so they go to Egypt. And that's the story of Moses. Around the year 1250 BCE, Moses leads the Jews, the Hebrews, out of Egypt. And he has that epic smackdown battle, my God's stronger than your God, against Pharaoh. Right? Did they do it in the Disney movie?
Yeah.
All the plagues, it rained frogs.
Yeah.
God does another, like, okay, so Passover. Okay, all you people who are on my side, you chosen people, you just paint a red blood X above your door sill so that when the spirit of death passes over the entire country of Egypt, if you're not one of my chosen people, a monotheist, every single oldest son in every single home in the entire country is going to die to show that I'm the tougher God than the Pharaoh's God. And so Moses is like, see, once again, Pharaoh, when are you going to get it? When are you going to get it? My God's tougher than yours. And Pharaoh's kind of like, yeah, right? What was the last one that finally got him? Was it that one?
His death of his son. Or no, that's you might not have.
Okay. I don't know. I never saw the Disney movie. I just, I actually read it in the Bible myself. So that was 1250 BC. And Moses then leads the Exodus. I do. I'll take a picture of this, but these words will be expected. I am making that quiz, I swear to you. I did the Middle East map quiz last night, so I'm making it all. I'll give it to you when I'm done. It's just that time? What's that? Okay, so Exodus, meaning mass evacuation. All the Jews leave. Miracles happen. God parts the Red Sea. We laughed about that because those silly Egyptians followed in their chariots, and God said, and they all drowned. Archaeologists have looked in the Red Sea for bronze chariots, and any evidence of a massive Egyptian army being drowned, they would float to the bottom, and we would find, any metal weapons, chariots, skeletons. They would sink to the bottom, and of course, they haven't found anything. So again, traditional histories are always interesting. So that's the Exodus. Now we go to the years of. So why is Moses a big deal? Besides all that sort of epic Hollywood stuff.
He saved them.
No, what's the one biggest thing? God did something to him.
10 Commandments.
God gave him the 10 Commandments. So they wander, they're looking for the promised land. Why it takes them 40 years to go from, I guess they didn't have Google Maps.
Didn't they worship an idol, so then God punished them by saying you would have to wander around the desert?
Check it out. They go from here, what's the yellow? Okay, yeah, so it goes to Sinai here. Yeah. They go from here, okay, they're running right now, so I get that little jig-jag thing. They're running. And then it's like, okay, and we want to go here. There's Jerusalem, there's Canaan, Palestine, right? We want to go back to where we came from when there was a famine. So what's the best way to do it? For 40 years, they are said in the Bible to have wandered the Sinai. 40 freaking years. Well, how do we get from here to here? Right? It's like, what? And here's why I had you know this word Sinai. Because on this mountain, Moses goes up to the mountaintop, and God speaks to Moses from a burning bush. Moses is just up there and suddenly a bush. So as we read this, I'm curious about what's his name, Percival and Simon? What types of imagery might we see that flags this stuff, right? And so God speaks from a burning bush, and he's like, he gives him the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
That's the short version.
He just goes up there and he just stays there, and there's lightning and and then.
And he's like, here's 2 stone tablets, and I've written on them, and these are the 10 laws. Thou shalt not, thou shalt not. You don't do this, you don't do this. If I were to ask you what 10 things humans shouldn't do it really quickly. What do you think, if you were God, you would tell people not to do? Just like, don't do that. Don't do these evils. No, I want you to write it down very quickly. Just jot it down. It's an interesting experiment. If you were God, what would you tell people to not do? Like, what's the single most important thing to tell people? Don't do that. What would it be? Write down your 10. As close to 10 as you can. Just like the most important ones first. I'm God. I want humans to be good, so I'm going to tell them.
Can we stand up and do
These are my laws. Just write your list right now, very quickly. Because after all, we know what evil is. You want people to not be evil, what are you going to tell them to do? It doesn't have to be full sentences. You can just put the one word, right? If it's tell corny jokes, just put corny. Thou shalt not tell corny jokes. I mean, that's so evil, right? Like jokes that aren't funny. Okay, real quick. Yeah, last man standing. No. I don't want to do last man standing because it makes more sense. Give me one, Alice.
Don't kill.
Don't kill. Okay? How many of you had don't kill as number 1? Hands high. The vast majority of you. Killing people sucks, right? I think we can all agree on that. Okay, what's number 2? Zach?
Every person should have the essentials of life.
But you're telling individuals how to be good. So how can you translate into that? Care about others?
Yeah.
I mean, it sort of sounds like that, right? Like, care about others. Don't let people be poor. Is that a fairly good paraphrase? Okay, so kill, care about others.
Don't care about.
Don't care.
No, thou shalt not. Right? So thou shalt care about other people. Be humane. Colin.
Don't steal.
Don't steal.
Oh, that's one.
How many of you had care for other people on your list? Or any variation like Zach's? Okay. Don't steal. How many of you had steal on your list?
Nope.
What do you think is more important, stealing or caring for other people?
If you care, you won't steal.
Yeah. You care about.
I think yours is a really good one. That's all I'm saying. Like, it's funny. It's like, oh, somebody took my M&Ms. Dude, that's so much more minor than, oh, somebody just walked by me when I was crying and they didn't care. They didn't steal any of my stuff, but they were heartless, right? So that's an interesting one. And yet we think of, we're so into stuff. Yes?
Lie to your parents?
Lie to your parents?
Just lie.
Lie to the parents, Ryder.
Lie. Sorry.
You lie to everybody else. Thou shalt not lie to their parents.
Yeah, lie in general.
Kill everybody else, but not your parents.
Yeah.
Aye. Okay, so don't lie, especially to your parents. I say unto you, thou shalt not lie. Especially to your parents. Okay, what else?
Oh, respect to your parents.
Okay, let's have some knots. Let's have some knots. What are some other knots? Important knots. Don't do this, yeah?
But don't be a douche.
Which is another way of saying don't be evil. It's too general. There's no specific action in that. Evil, douche, I mean, it's the same thing. Just one has more like class and taste. Yes?
Don't like torture or like willingly hurt someone kind of a thing.
Okay.
Abuse, yeah.
Okay. Don't abuse, inflict pain.
Isn't that what?
I don't know.
Okay, what other things? Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Don't like disrespect animals.
Okay. Animals, interesting.
They kill them though.
Yeah, like make
They sacrifice.
Well, you know
yeah,
what?
but like not like if you don't need to.
Don't kick a puppy because it's fun. Don't bury that kitten and then like go, oh, let's bury the kitten and leave its head out of the ground and then get the lawnmower and just go right over. That's so fun. People did that in my neighborhood in the South in the United States growing up. They played golf with, you know, puppy heads. I mean, right, we do sick things to animals. By the way, all the food that you eat, you know about the industrial farms and how those animals are treated,
And
right?
McDonald's.
It's not just sick
Yum.
little kids, it's our culture. We now abuse animals as a norm.
As a living.
They never walk on earth and grass because we buy them at cold storage and we don't care. We just buy it and eat it and we just pretend it's not happening. But most animals on this planet are now suffering and torture is their daily life. Yeah?
Preserving your body, like don't get it pierced or anything.
Okay. All right. That's an interesting one.
Isn't it?
Don't pierce your body?
Don't
You think
change
that's a-
anything about yourself. You're
You know what? I mean, I'm a huge fan of "Thou shalt not" tattoo. Thou shalt not. But you think that's evil?
like, cause he gave you the life. He gave you life, and I think if you like,
Your body's your temple, kind of thing.
yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah. Okay, that's very Confucian.
So,
That's why the
Ooh.
Chinese men in the historical things don't cut their hair, because this is your body, and so the men, their hair grows really long to the end of their lives, and that's why they've got those weird hairpins and that bun, top knot, right? Because
Why do you?
it's a dishonor to your parents, because your parents gave you your body. When they cut their nails, they put them in a little silk pouch, and they're buried with them. When the eunuch is castrated and his penis and testicles come off, he puts that in a little silk pouch. And so all of your body parts, because your parents gave it, are buried with you, right? And so that's an interesting one. Yeah? Don't mess around with somebody else's
Beyonce.
wife, husband, spouse. Now, some people might go, oh, why not? That's harmless. Well, because you might destroy a family just so you can have an orgasm, right? Have a little thrill. That's not very cool. That's pretty evil. Ruin somebody else's family by taking advantage of some person during a weak moment in that relationship. That's pretty evil, I agree. Adultery. What happens though when, at the same time, it's okay, like King Solomon in the Bible, to have 1,000 concubines? King Solomon, King David's son, had 1,000 women, and he was married. Is that adultery?
No, because women aren't married.
Yeah.
Women aren't married.
Because the
Yeah.
concubines.
No.
I mean, I guess it's
Is God a
about-
sexist?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why can't women have 1,000 husbands?
Because God.
Just
God said so.
Because God doesn't want to share.
What'd you say?
God doesn't want to share.
Oh.
He died at 52.
God just struck me dead. That's how I died at 52. All right, because I just asked him if he was a sexist. That was a death at 52 and God striking people dead joke. All right. Now, what other thou shalt nots that are really evil? Yeah?
Don't have sex before marriage. Is that like one of them?
Why is that evil?
why is that evil?
Because that's what it says in the.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it says, but we're asking like,
What if you
Oh,
never get
okay.
married?
I thought
if
it
you're
was-
God and you're like going, okay, I just really want this to be a nice place. Maybe sex before marriage is not a good idea. Maybe. Is it evil?
Well,
Okay, maybe an alteration to that is don't have sex before a certain age. Like,
Yeah, but that's not
You know
evil.
what? Juliet was legally, and her dad was like, okay, 12-year-old, I do want you to marry this 23-year-old Paris. Yes, because norms of, like, you know what, when you reach puberty as a female, in the past, traditionally, you were ready to marry. 13 years old, marry. Have kids.
We don't want to take care of you.
Don't disobey God.
Bye.
Don't disobey God.
Well, that's kind of like.
Don't obey the Ten
Okay,
Commandments.
so, right.
Don't
So,
obey God.
if I had asked this question outside of the context of religion, and just like goes, what do you wish people would stop doing in the world? You wouldn't have probably answered that. That probably wouldn't have come to your mind. Would it?
No.
No.
Probably them getting ready for the sharing, the bullying,
Are you doing something?
Oh, yeah.
You look so guilty right now. Okay, so that's enough. Notice we did all things that are like, just kind of like, seriously. No, and there was a point to this. I always fear that my playfulness makes you think he's not serious. I'm both at the same time. Do you realize that?
Yes.
Because all of these things here are just basic senses of right and wrong. What's the very first thing that God tells? The most important commandments, the first one. Check it out.
Don't obey any other
God.
God.
Oh, don't worship any other god. That was my other one.
Oh.
You shall not ever.
So here of all the things that God would say, like here's my list of the most important 10. Well, I am your God. Don't you dare worship another one. Isn't it? I mean, this is why people are like, I'm talking a historical point of view. People are like, of all the things, and people today too, modern people who are piggies, they're like, that's not reasonable. God is going to talk about how to make a good world in the first, maybe, I mean, I can see arguments there. I'm a good God, and so if you just obey me, then everything will be good. Maybe. But why don't you just tell us how to be good? Why does it have to be about, like, obeying you instead of just what a group of ninth graders could come up with? This is a pretty good list. Don't kill people. Don't be a bully and inflict pain on people or animals. Don't steal. Care for other people. Care for animals. Don't ruin families just so you can have a fun night. I mean, it's a pretty good list, right? Number 2. Okay, this one's really important. This is, okay, so we have now done 1/5 of God's divine, like, this is how to make the world perfect. Don't make any sculptured images. Don't make any statues of anything that's an image of something. A Barbie doll is a sculpted image, is it not? A G.I. Joe? Those are sculpted images. Don't do that. That's the second one.
Wait, what?
Because why?
Isn't this kind of odd?
Yeah.
Notice that there's nothing about don't kill or anything else. Don't worship anything but me, and don't you dare sculpt an image.
Sculpt an image.
Hope an artist isn't.
Why? Why is sculpting an image evil? Because you can what? Because you could steal it?
Crazy.
Like
You could praise it. Oh, you could worship it.
Oh, it becomes like a.
Ah, and so this word, worshiping, is because this is what people did. They had little fertility images, statues, phallic symbols. Phallic. You know what the phallus is from biology?
Follicle?
The phallus is the penis. And so, again, I'm not being dirty and I'm not being weird at all. I'm only being, like, trusting that you can get, we're talking about fertility religions, so they would have in their temples the image of the male side of fertility that causes birth to happen because it's important that the fields grow food, right? And so they would have phallic statues, and they would also have the opposite,
The vagina.
the female symbols. And they would also have cows, statues of cows, and statues of, why cows?
Milk?
Because they give us milk and meat and leather and all sorts of stuff. So we need cows, and so we're gonna like try to make all these things magically, like keep on giving birth to more of them. And so these were considered idols. And God was like, don't you dare even ever think of taking those things seriously, because it's all about me now. It's not about these fertility gods. This is a war against fertility religion of Babylon. You think he would have said that if there weren't people around like worshiping
Probably not.
Cows and images of the phallus and
Nope,
the female
probably
thing? No,
not.
right? Okay, you will not say GD. This is the third one. You won't say gosh darn, and you know that I'm really like the G-O-D-D-A-M-N, right? Don't swear falsely by the name of the Lord your God. 3 out of 10 of the most evil things you can do. Worship another god, make a statue, or say GD, the GD word.
God damn it.
Oh.
Fall to the ground and die.
No, just pray.
Remind God, I'm going to remind God to
Pray.
kill you later.
I get it.
I have resurrected.
Okay, here's the next one. Number 4. If the world's going to be good, you're not going to work on Saturday.
Sunday.
No, it was Saturday. I speak Arabic. There was a fight
Okay.
between Christians, Jews, and Muslims about the holy day and all sorts of. Jews do Saturday. When the sun goes down on Friday, conservative Jews to this day, who really follow this, when the sun goes down on Friday, that's the beginning of Sabbath. Sabbath is the word for 7. On the 7th day, God created the universe in 6 days in Genesis, and on the 7th day, he rested. And so we rest too. It's kind of cool. I can see it as you need a day off. Don't work every day. But people take it to these bizarre extremes because where it's like, so guess what they do? Guess what these conservative Jews do? Guess what no work means? The sun goes down on Friday.
Fast.
It's sweet.
Before the sun goes down, this is what the daughters and sons are doing in their bathrooms. They're tearing the toilet paper off in case they have to poop or pee for the next 24 hours. Because tearing toilet paper is work. You can't work.
Are you serious?
I am dead serious. Yes, this is what the most conservative Jews do in Israel. There are documentaries about it.
Yeah.
Google it. You can see it. It's true. It's true. It's incredibly wild. So this is not working. You don't do it. You don't cook. You don't do anything, right?
Do you just not eat?
So you don't get
No. So you're making all your food. You're doing everything.
Come
You're
on,
doing
you'll be
all the
cold.
work so that you don't work at all. And
no.
work defined to an extreme is
But
just
you
bizarre.
said-
You tore your toilet paper? Oh!
Then you can't get out of
You
there.
didn't use toilet paper because you were too lazy to tear it? Double, oh!
Yeah,
Does that
don't.
mean you can't walk up and down stairs?
Or get in bed.
Or
It's,
get
I,
a
you
roof.
can imagine how.
Oh my God, Mr.
Okay, so,
Burrell.
I'm not going to go through this whole list, but notice how strange this 10 Commandments thing is. There is not one thing about being good to other people. It's all about obeying God. And finally, number 5. Okay, it's about time. Mom,
I knew
Dad,
there was something.
I'm going to respect you. But it took to get to number 5.
What if you don't have that?
Don't murder. Don't commit adultery. Don't steal. Don't lie.
Oh, there.
Oh, that's too funny.
You should
These
have
American
to
textbooks are so funny. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's ass, God says.
What?
Covet means
Wow.
want. Oh, I want that. I really wish I had that.
Lust?
I really wish I had my neighbor's ass.
Lust?
What is that?
Or
It's not a Nicki
Yes.
Minaj thing.
Ask
I'm
us
surprised you
both.
know who she is.
An ass is a donkey.
Oh.
My neighbor's got this really nice donkey. I wish I had a nice donkey. My neighbor's got a really nice Lexus.
Oh, so
I wish
like
I had
be
a
jealous?
Lexus.
Don't.
I'm jealous.
Don't want for
Don't
him.
like be all like greedy because don't try to follow the Joneses and oh they got a mansion and a yacht. Oh I want a mansion and a yacht. Right? All sort of stupidity. Jealousy and yeah.
Or
How many
isn't that the
they're
7
traveling
deadly
around the
sins or
world.
something?
Okay.
3 and then 1.
No, that's a different thing.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, and who else do we look at?
don't
Now,
want
okay,
some
so
masquerade.
what an interesting exercise that was, right? So to finish Moses. See, it's hard not to talk about these things because they're interesting. And I told you, I keep like saying, but wasn't that interesting?
It was.
Yeah.
And yet, Mr. Torgerson is I think he's very religious. And every time we have meetings where we talk about what's the most important thing for kids to take away, this is what they say about Judaism and monotheism of Abraham. They're like, what's the most important thing? And they say this. And I always go, I don't get that. I do. And again, remember, I was baptized at age 11. I read the Bible through and all that sort of stuff, right? But this is my honest reaction. Feel free to disagree and argue me out of it. Like, I'm starting to see some sense in this that I didn't see the first time I looked at it. It's called ethical monotheism. So this whole 10 Commandments thing, Torah,
Is there another monotheist religion that's not the
Allah or God that the Abrahamic religion?
That's a really great question, and there is one. Well, sort of. But
Oh yeah,
it's from a neighboring. Okay, check it out. What they call this bizarre, radical, really, like literally, truly weird for the time. What a weird religion it was. They said there's one God. They said they're doing all the normal stuff, statues in the temple, fertility rituals, all this stuff, all the normal stuff, respecting other gods, all this stuff. They say it's evil and there's only one, and don't you dare have a statue, and blah, 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 right? So what Mr. Torjan always says is it's the birth of ethical monotheism. And ethics means the philosophy of doing what's good. Ethics is morals. So this is the birth of moral monotheism. And when I look at the 10 Commandments, I'm like, I could make a more moral list than that, right? There's no like, be nice to animals there. There's no, I mean, the rest of them, is there care for others? Not really. There's your parents, and don't take other people's stuff and want their ass. That's why I say the word ass, because it's in the Bible, in God's English.
Yes.
Whatever you say.
God didn't speak English. And when people quote the Bible, God said it. God didn't speak English, dude. The book's in Hebrew. It's in God's English. Okay. So what is Moses important for? Giving the law. The first 5 books of the Bible are called the Torah. All right? You got to know that, Torah. And they say that that's ethical monotheism. And when I read Confucius, I'm like, that's more ethical. Why are we saying that there's this special ethical stuff here? I think it's Western bias, straight out. When he says that, I'm like, that's not an ethical masterpiece to me. That's obey a man who says some really scary things sometimes. And that's the most important thing. It's really, really, really an interesting moment in history. And the people around them thought so too. Now, one last thing before we leave the law of Moses in the Torah. What is the Torah technically? The first 5 books of the Bible. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Genesis, the birth of the universe, God creating it. Exodus, running away from Pharaoh. Leviticus, the beginning of priests. Numbers, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy are, okay, there's not 10 commandments. Guess how many there really are?
There's like 300.
630 odd. And there was a man, did we talk about it? Did we talk about it?
No.
Because there was a guy who said this would be, he was a journalist, a living guy, where is it? And he said it would be really interesting. Laws like this, don't drink milk and eat fish at the same meal. God said to Moses. And Moses wrote it down and it's in the Bible. These first 5 books of the Torah are a trip. Read them. A guy read them, he wrote a book saying, I'm going to do every single one of them. I'm going to live according to the real God law, not just this easy 10 commandments, the other 620 odd. I'm going to like observe them every single day. I'm not going to work on the Sabbath. I'm not going to tear toilet paper on Saturday. I'm not going to wear shirts that are combined linen and wool because that's a sin.
Are you serious?
I'm not going to take my wife to the temple when she's on her period because that's a sin. I'm not going to eat fish and blah, blah, blah. And so he wrote a book called, for 1 year, and he was in New York, for 1 year, I'm going to live like the ancient Jews.
I actually want to read it.
The year of living biblically. Look at this cover, it's awesome. You got this Moses-looking guy in front of New York City with a Starbucks cup in his hand. And he's living according to these 630 odd thou shalt and shalt nots. Seriously, you can't wear a blend of linen and wool. That's against the rules. All sorts of stuff. So, but what's interesting about the book is he was like, you know what? I just thought it would be fun. But when I started doing it, it became very interesting. Because I learned from the inside that there's a lot more to this than just the weirdness that we see from the outside. So that's the sort of the serious side to cap this. Nonetheless, let's finish this. We have, okay, no. I always rush because these schedules keep changing. And it's 11:21 one day, it's 11:35, and it's the next day. You okay today?
Wait, what is today? What time does class end today?
11:35.
Oh.
Here is the end of the story. Here's the end of the story. Moses does bring the people back finally. So we've gone 1250, that's the, whatever, fail. 1250, that's Egypt. That's the Exodus from Egypt. In the year 1000, our next major patriarch. So these are the only ones I want you to know because I don't want you to be dumb, ignorant. This is cultural literacy. Abraham, Moses, the next one that we care about, in the year 1000 finally does create Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And his name is, let's just, I know it should be Saul and then David and then Solomon, but let's just do David. King David. And the year 1000. And what does he do? He slays Goliath, who is a Babylonian type fertility god, soldier, warrior, because they're conquering. I told you, that promised land that God promised, was it empty real estate? There were people there and they didn't believe in him. They didn't follow the commandments. Guess what God said to do to them?
Kill.
Care about them?
No.
No.
Wipe them out. You read this book and it is shocking. It is shocking. There are sentences that would make a person think, this is, you tell me, take this city and kill every man and boy and animal and tree, but keep the daughters for yourselves. Kill the dogs, kill the trees, kill the families, except for the young daughters. Keep those for yourselves. God tells his chosen people to do that to the people who have been living here agriculturally, doing their fertility, farming their land, different religion, and it's genocide. Kill them all, because they're not chosen. They're not from Abraham, they're not my people. They don't follow the 10 Commandments, the first one, worship only me. And it's a disturbing thing. And they win according to their tradition. Now again, archaeology does not back this up at all. There's no evidence of a major takeover when we dig up in the ground. Christian archaeologists have wanted to find evidence so they can go, it's true, and every time they try, it's like, oh, we didn't find any. So this is interesting because it's prehistory, all these stories. In any case, the story goes, David founded Jerusalem in 1000. This is the city of God. This is today's capital of Jerusalem. Of Israel, sorry. So you do understand that I expect you to know Jerusalem because if there's a World War III, it might very possibly be because of this city of Jerusalem. It might cause the next nuclear war. Do you know why? I'm not making this claim up. Do you know why?
Whoa.
Oh, heck. Here we go again. All right.
Yeah.
Look at this picture here. This is Jerusalem. It has walls. Oh, you're leaving on a really interesting point with current events, but go ahead. Stay or go. Don't freak me out. Have you seen this image before?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is it called? The Dome of the Rock. Now, wars could start because of this place. A lot of people expect them to. Things are starting to heat up again right now in Arab, Muslim, Hebrew, Jewish relationships because of this building. Dome of the Rock. Have I mentioned an important rock in Israeli history today, in Hebrew Judaic history today? I have. What rock did I mention that was very, very disturbingly important?
Oh,
Where? Use your words.
Where Abraham was told to kill his son.
His son?
Isaac.
Isaac. That rock is under this dome. The rock of Abraham. And this is a very sacred building to a certain religion. Do you know which religion it's sacred to? The Jews, obviously, right? No, the Muslims.
Because
This is a Muslim building. And it's over Abraham's rock where he showed his obedience to God. And it's a Muslim building. They own it, not the Jews. And it's in Jerusalem. How did that happen?
Is that because the Jews said don't make any sculptured image?
Because this image will really bring it home. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, check it out. I mean, it's ironic. Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Judaism, Islam. What's weird about this? Okay, this wall, really nice and finished. This wall, broken, right? Right, do you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you see all these people at the bottom of this wall facing the wall? Isn't that a weird thing? They're facing the wall. They're all just facing the wall. And they're praying to it. It's not a statue, I guess it's okay. It's a wall, it's not a statue. It's not an image, it's a wall. And they're writing prayers, they're crying. This is called the weeping wall. And they write prayers and they stick the prayers in between the stones of the wall. And the prayers are, let us rebuild our temple. So let's go back to that temple that they're praying to. It used to be here. There used to be a temple here. And guess who built the temple? David's son. 3,000 years ago. It was God's temple. Because God said, I'm the only God. Hear my commandments. Worship only me. If there's one God, how many temples should there be? One temple. For the one chosen race. The Hebrews. And so they did build a temple under David. And it was Solomon's temple. Now I'm about to delete this, I'm about to erase this picture with interesting words like phallic idols and so forth. Oh. The first time I've ever tried it, let's hope it works. Okay, good. That just went straight to me. So awesome. Okay, now, in the year 1000, the country of Israel was created. They conquered the Holy Land, and now God has delivered his promise to Abraham. I will make a great nation of your people. The nation of Israel was born.
What birthday?
1000, Israel born. And they have Solomon's temple. Well, in the 500s.
Is this BCE still?
Yeah. Until Jesus comes, we're all BCE. But thank you for asking. So there it is, right? Solomon builds the kingdom and the temple and all sort of thing. I'm going to scroll through that because the next major section is this. And it's next to the last. You remember Babylon? They've been the big superpower, the United States, the biggest army, the most developed, the most advanced, the most civilized, yada yada, right? Influencing Greece, Egypt, Iran, the entire Middle East. They're an empire. They control other countries. And when they try to control the Israelis and bring in their statues of their gods and goddesses, the Israelis say, oh, we don't do that. You saw the commandment. You will worship no God beside me, and you won't make idols. This causes a major political thing. The Babylonians keep saying, excuse us? Every single nation and religion from Egypt to Greece to Iran respects our gods, and we respect theirs. And you're telling us that ours are false and evil, and we can't? And the Jewish priest says, that's exactly what we're telling you. This is the one temple of the one God. The Babylonians were like, okay, that tears it. And in 536, I believe, 586, thanks. Yeah. So in 586, in the 580s, the Babylonians destroy the temple. Destroy Solomon's temple. We'll teach those monotheists to disrespect us. Bulldoze the temple. They say that their all-powerful God lives in there. Well, let's take a wrecking bomb to it, a wrecking ball to it, and see what their all-powerful God does. And he did nothing. And the Jews freaked, were humiliated. They destroy Solomon's temple. And to further humiliate them, because it was the priests who, after all, wrote the Ten Commandments, the Bible. It was the priests, the ones who got power from God. Think of Simon. Think of Percival, the ones who get power from causing fear in other people, and say, God wrote this, and the little people get afraid.
Cried by the wall.
And these priests were the ones who were like, there is only one God, away, evil Babylonians. And the Babylonians were like, okay, all of you, we've just destroyed your temple, so all of you priests, away with you, you're going to Babylon to be under house arrest. We're taking you captive and deporting you to our capital city.
Wow.
This would be like, what? So this is called the Babylonian captivity. Do you get it? This is very dramatic. And this is what makes my understanding of the Bible so much more complicated than most people's. It's all going to come to a head now. This is the climax of the story. And it's a drama. It's a story. I'm going to remind you that the main religion here was one where women were good, and fertility and birth and the body and nature and sex and everything was good, natural. And women were good. And priestesses and goddesses, female, the feminine, was good. And there were prostitutes in the temple because fertility and life is good. It was this religion that destroyed the temple of the priests of the one God, and then took them all by force, humiliating them, and said, live in our capital city. And they did. In a ghetto. They were closed in a ghetto in downtown Baghdad, separate from their people. The rest of the Jews stayed there, the commoners, the little ones. It was the big guys. And they stayed there for 2 generations, 60 years. And they thought, we don't have a temple, we're never going to go back. All of our teachings, our religion's going to die, our way's going to die. How do we keep it from dying? Because it's always been through temple worship. They wrote the Bible. This is when the Bible started being written, because they didn't want their traditions to die. And so this is when the book of Genesis, this is when all these books are written and put together. How do you think they interpreted? What did God say when you disobey me? When you disobey me, or, and this is from last time, this is the drama. I know the history things are long, guys. You said you want a history thing, guess what? You're going to have some teachers who do this every single day. What did the Jews say? When we disobey God, he's going to do what to us? Or when we don't worship him or obey him, he's going to do what to us? And it's weird.
Use our neighbors.
Use our neighbors, thank you. God's going to use our neighbors to punish us when our faith and worship when we stop worshiping him the way he says to worship him. When we start coveting our neighbors' asses, when we start doing adultery, when we start dishonoring our parents, when we start getting kind of wicked, but especially not obeying him, when we start breaking the commandments, he's going to punish us through things like this, the Babylonian captivity. And so all of the elites who were taken captive, 30 years later they died, but they had children, and their children grew up, the second generation in Babylon. And so when they saw, I hope Persia's next, sweetness and light. Look what happens next in our story. And this will stop it. when they saw the Persian Empire with Darius and Xerxes and Cyrus, and one of those guys is in the 300 movie, the Persian Empire starts growing in Iran, and this is the end. And it conquers everything and creates the Persian Empire. And it conquers Babylon. Now, what question do you have? The Persian Empire conquers Babylon and its city, so what question do you have?
What happens to the Jews in the
What happens to the Jews who have been captive in Babylon under the Babylonians? The Persians were much more sort of tolerant. They said, wow, the Babylonians did this to you? Go back to Jerusalem and build your temple. And so the Babylonian captivity was over. And they went back and they built a second temple. So notice, Zach, stay with me because it's interesting. I showed you a picture of a wall, and I said a temple used to be above it. And then I told you that so was that Solomon's temple that you saw with the broken wall? No, because the Babylonians destroyed one temple already. There was already one temple there, and the Babylonians came along and take that.
Was it destroyed for a second time?
So they built a second temple.
Oh,
starting
God.
because of the Persians.
Oh, God.
Now, and they're like, thank you, God, for making the Persians become a big empire for us. So that we can build a temple for you again. Because history revolves around us. It's all about us. We're chosen. The rest of it's just supporting characters in the drama of the chosen people of God, us Jews. So, when the Persians come, so that's the 580s, I think this is around the 440s. Close enough, who cares, really? The second temple period begins. They built one temple, the Babylonians destroyed it. They got taken away. 6 years later, the Persians threw the Babylonians out, put the Jews back in. They built a second temple. Now, so that's the 440s. Watch this. Fast forward. Let's do like a 1 minute fast history. What happened to the Persian Empire? What big empires do you know?
Babylon.
Roman.
Good, Roman. Good. You're thinking Roman. What about before the Roman? There's one other great guy. What's the biggest Greek empire? It's not Athens, I'll tell you. Who's the Greek guy who conquered all the way to India?
Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great. So,
Was he great?
fast forwarding, watch this. I'll draw it for you. So that's the 440s, the Second Temple period. 100 years later, 330, there's a guy named Alexander the Great. He's Greek.
I thought he was Persian.
No. Yeah, and then his dad conquered Greece. So Alexander the Great. I wrote the Greek.
The Greek.
Alexander the Great. Jimmy the Greek. And then in let's see, roughly we'll call it 100. Roman Empire. Let me finish the story in 2 minutes.
Oh, God.
No, so let me. The Second Temple period under the Persians. They're like, great, we've got our temple again. Alexander the Great comes.
Breaks it.
I want to bring a temple, I want to bring a statue of Zeus into your temple because that's what we do. We're an empire, we're a Greek empire, we like Zeus. Let us, show us some respect. Let us put Zeus in your temple next to your God. What are the Jews going to say?
No.
Oh, hell no. What does Alexander the Great do? Oh, hell yes. I'm Alexander the Greatest. Hanukkah, with that candle thing, the Jewish holiday.
Yeah.
Oh,
They resisted Alexander the Great. No, you won't. He's little bitty Jerusalem. It had 5,000 people in it. It was almost as small as SAS. It was not an important city at all. And they hold out against Alexander the Great and win. And so he doesn't do what the Babylonians do. He could have. End of story. But he didn't. He was just like, right. Meanwhile,
Roman.
He dies, and he's a horrible empire builder. He's just a great conqueror. The Alexander the Great's empire was a big disaster. It fell apart. The next people that come in are the Romans, and here's the end of the story. The Romans come in. When the Romans come in, what are the Romans going to say when they see this temple to the one God that they now control because they control Jerusalem now?
Break it?
We want to put a god. We want to put a statue of Jupiter, Mars, Aphrodite, and the Jews say no. And the Jews are trying to overthrow the Romans. They're dreaming for a King David to come back, to create a free Israel again, a Messiah. All the priests are predicting it, prophesying it. Jesus, some people say he was it. He dies, he didn't bring liberation, so he's not the Jews' Messiah, because the Messiah is the one who liberates us from foreign control. The Romans get so sick of these Jews trying to overthrow this empire that's controlling them, that 30 years after Jesus died, and here's the end of the story. Two major things happen. It's the end of our story. We're done. They destroy the temple, take that. So the Romans destroy the second temple, and that's the story of that picture you see. The second thing they do is this. They kick the Jews out again. The Babylons evacuated the Jews. That was the first time they were removed. God brought them back. The Romans kicked them out this time. Jews, we're sick of you. We can't stand you. We own this territory. Watch this. Spread like dust. They deported them. They forcefully repopulated them. So there's no more Jews in in Jerusalem. There's no temple. There's no Jews. There's Romans now. How did that Muslim building get there? 600 years later, the next empire to come and take this land is Muslim. And they build a temple there. The Jews will be, after the Romans kick them out for 2,000 years, the Jews will not be there. That's why when they come back after World War II, it's a head-bending story, because they're like, God brought us back. He told us he would, right? The power of faith. It's amazing. All right. Whether it's true or not, it's amazing. Okay. So we have a chapter 6. I can't wait to read it this weekend. I haven't read it in a long time.
Me neither. It's been a year.
Just a year?
Uh-huh.